It would be only a John DeLorean that could say, not since Walter Chrysler has anyone as well prepared sought to enter the auto industry.
He was the guy who brought a dream, and we all lived that dream. We all felt part of that dream, and it was our dream.
I felt that I would help myself, I would help my company, and I would help that bunch of people. And for a while, it turned out that way.
It wasn't like another Ford Escort been built. This was something different.
Having led us up the garden path, he suddenly went to a stage where he hadn't got any money at all. And one just knew then that he was not a man to rely on.
This is the tale of the biggest car crash in automotive history. The story of how a modern-day Machiavelli spent £85 million of taxpayers' money in pursuit of his dream of building a stainless steel sports car. Nearly a quarter of a century ago, the only sports car ever built in Ireland ceased production. The car was as controversial as it was non-conventional. Gull-wing doors, stainless steel skins, and a cost to the taxpayer of around £275 million in today's money. It was the DeLorean DMC-12.
It's the first time I've driven a DeLorean. I've obviously heard lots about them over the years, especially when the factory started up here. There was a lot of excitement in Northern Ireland about building a sports car. I think the look of the car is fantastic. It still looks very striking today.
Designed as a sports car for the masses, its future-proofed film star looks fast-tracked it on the road to stardom.
I mean, look at that. There's really been nothing since that looks as futuristic and as worthy of space travel as this.
I'm going to take a little joyride.
With extraordinary vision, DeLorean saw riot-strewn West Belfast not as a hindrance, but as a glorious opportunity. He was going to build a car in a state-of-the-art factory, make a lot of money, and have his name mentioned in the same breath as Enzo Ferrari and Ferdinand Porsche. He almost succeeded.
If this had been a Ferrari instead of a Ferrari badge on it, it would have sold.
The story begins 3,000 miles away in another industrial city, Detroit, car capital of America and home of some of the biggest gas guzzlers on the planet. John Zachary DeLorean was its rising star.
I was a pretty talented engineer. I still am. And today, I don't think there's a car running anywhere in the world that doesn't have something that I created on it, even now. I was the youngest vice president General Motors ever had. I was the youngest group executive they ever had, the youngest head of Pontiac, the youngest chief engineer, the youngest head of Chevrolet.
He was the youngest general manager by far, and I don't think anybody had ever achieved that at that age. He almost quadrupled Pontiac sales during his time with the division, which was a phenomenal achievement.
The man had a vision and could see the vision through. I mean, he took a failing division and turned it into the top division within GM within a very short time.
The dealers, saw him as their messiah. He could do no wrong as far as they were concerned.
You get to a certain point and all of a sudden, and particularly in large corporations, you're living a lifestyle you can't believe. You have a fleet of private planes at your disposal. Everywhere you go, there's cars to meet you at the airport. They take your luggage to the hotel and check it in, and you basically do nothing. It was a pretty incredible life.
He was outspoken. He was a little bit off-center. He was dating starlets and so on, which is not the normal procedure at General Motors at all. That's the level where you're supposed to sort of sit back and, coast to your retirement.
By 1973, he was tipped for the top job at General Motors, but he wasn't the type to be constrained by corporate politics. It was time to go it alone. Instead of GMC on the boot, John wanted the badge to read DMC.
I think it sort of came to me one time when I was making the new car announcement, and were telling the dealers and the public what a dramatic and miraculous new car this was. And it really wasn't. It was the same old car with the fenders bent a little bit differently. And so I thought, I just can't keep doing this. And so I decided to go off and try to do something more ethical from the standpoint of something that would last. And that's where the stainless steel car concept came from.
DeLorean left General Motors with little more than a few ideas sketched out on the back of an envelope. Needing someone to give his vision life, he approached the man considered to be the most innovative car designer in the world, the Italian Giorgetto Giugiaro. DeLorean's unique concept was to produce a rust-proof, eco-friendly sports car with safety of paramount importance. The designs were stunning. It was christened the DMC-12 and would retail at just $12,000. But building this car wasn't going to come cheap. DeLorean had little or no money himself. He had to find backers, fast. With only a concept car to sell, the Silver Fox approached his old friends, the car dealers, to help him raise capital for the project. They didn't let him down, and soon he had the first $8 million in the bank. But this was small change for what was really needed. Never one to miss an opportunity, John figured that rather than go to the traditional car makers, he would exploit countries with high unemployment.
The Industrial Development Authority, the IDA, came along to me and they said some of their people in America were talking to a man called DeLorean, who had a project for a revolutionary new type of car. When the IDA gave a sort of indicative offer, he came back a few days later and said that he had a higher one from Puerto Rico. The IDA got suspicious about that, and I must say I was suspicious about it too. But that was his method of operating.
As a manager of a public company, I have an obligation to see where I can make the best arrangement for my shareholders.
He would say to one, well, I'm getting a better deal from another one.
He thought that I wouldn't resist whatever he looked for.
He and his people would endeavor to, get the best deal they could by some toing and froing between different candidates.
I felt we shouldn't go on with it.
It's believed the IDA pulled out of a possible deal because they considered the project too risky.
The spin that he put on the whole thing after we had said no to him didn't impress me either.
I didn't feel I should spend my investors' money in a capricious and arbitrary way.
He seems to have a plausible sort of answer for everything. And I'm suspicious of someone who has a plausible answer for every difficulty, because some difficulties are huge and they can't be overcome that easily.
With the Irish out of the way, the Puerto Ricans thought they had the deal sewn up, but they hadn't reckoned on DeLorean's blatant opportunity. He had heard of a place even more in need of a good news story and a government ready to invest. He took a call from Belfast. 10 years of conflict had left almost 2,000 people dead, and the highest unemployment in Western Europe made Northern Ireland an investment-free zone. The Labour government was desperate to get men off the dole and away from the paramilitaries.
Roy Mason had this mantra, which was jobs, homes and hope, and he perceived that as the only real alternative to a military solution to deal with the IRA.
I think the people in Belfast were quite proactive about it, and I think they made the first move, if I'm not mistaken, and said, hey, if this is going, we want to have a look at it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Sensing a better deal, DeLorean left the Puerto Ricans in mid-negotiation and boarded a plane bound for Belfast. John made his pitch, and the government took the bait.
This is a car assembly plant. It's the United States market it's going for. The company have got 400 outlets already. They've got private investment behind them. They've got 30,000 orders already for the car.
Back in New York, the Puerto Ricans thought all they had to do was sign on the dotted line. They had no idea there was another player at the table.
Did you get the impression at the time that you were negotiating it that you were involved in a race?
I was involved with competition, yes, but not a race.
Were you playing one off against the other?
I think that's making it sound a lot cruder than it was.
The British and the Northern Irish Development Agency secretly did the deal in just 46 days. The Puerto Ricans were still stuck in their New York hotel.
After these great inducements they offered us, that was probably a more logical place for us to go.